one of the things about that was kind of, as I listened throughout in previous times with you, you've given credit to so many cats who have influenced your style through the years. And as someone who does not play, you could really hear the way you kind of described, you were kind of incorporating so many different flavors. So while it stays this really experimental, fusion-y kind of feel, you really do maintain the ukulele sound, and then you have the different like techniques, I guess for a better way, lack of a more technical way of putting it, that you incorporate throughout it. And there wasn't really, I liked it because it was very challenging to me. Because I've heard so many of your things and I wasn't prepared, especially last time we were talking a lot about rock and guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And then here you are. It was just, and you use it throughout the record. And when you talked about the strings in the Celtic tune, it also made me wonder, there were some sounds that you used, almost like one of them was like an electric wind. I'm trying to remember which one of these tunes it had this like really psychedelic kind of quality that you'd make these like a building underneath the back of there.
Oh, I think that maybe Kilauea.
It might have been in Kilauea. You used it a couple times in there. How is something like that generated to complement the music?
Yeah, it was a lot of my guitar heroes, I think you can really hear it on this album, but guys like, of course, I mentioned Santana earlier, but but especially people like Jeff Beck, Jimi Hendrix, Van Halen. In fact, the song Kilauea was kind of, the way that came about was I was thinking about Van Halen's Eruption. His piece Eruption. It's just, if you play electric guitar, that's the piece you want to learn, right? And I always thought, man, it would be cool to have a piece similar to that, for the ukulele that really just explodes, just like Van Halen's Eruption, and what we did was we just kind of, Nolan, the bass player, just we just kind of picked a key, and it happened to be C, and he just started playing a little riff in C, and then I just started improvising over it, and it was just like
planning at all.
It was just a one take, completely spontaneous, thing, and it just kind of went into this, this whole different place, and when we were done, we just kind of looked at each other, we're like, wow, that was cool. Let's go in and listen to it, So is it in post-production that some of these, like Man of Mud is the one that I wrote down. The effects, the backgrounds. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the way that all of these songs were approached, what we did was we recorded everything as a trio. And so most of the time it was either I would record with drums and bass with my tenor or with the baritone, whichever one was going to play majority of the song. So for Man of Mud, I took my baritone, and we played, we kind of had the idea, and we do like 2 or 3 takes of the song, as we kind of worked it out, right? And then basically when we were done, then we'd kind of go back, we'd go into the room and listen, and we'd be like, oh man, it'd be really cool to, like maybe I'll add a second ukulele part or a third ukulele, or maybe I'll do something on the tenor or on the soprano. And then there were even things where Nolan and Evan would kind of go back, and Evan would do layer some percussion stuff, and they even did like some synth stuff, which was really cool. He had these drum synth things that would make these weird, almost like electronic dance music kind of sounds, and I just loved it, man. It was just but we were so in the moment, so everyone would just run out there and we'd try something and be like, yeah, that's cool, come at this. So I feel like there was that kind of energy, in every tune. And because everything was played live together, you still get that, even though there were things layered after the fact, you still have that element of that live, raw, kind of ensemble.
So they're standing in the same room. When you're
oh yeah,
playing that?
Yeah, we were. Basically, like Nolan and I were just a little further from where we're sitting, and and the drummer was like maybe 10 feet away from me. So everybody's mics were basically
And they're
picking up
getting
each
the oop
other's playing
through the amp right there into their face as they're playing.
And actually
energy.
I even had like these two big or the D&B monitor speakers in front of me, you know, so I would have like the bass and the drums coming through there. So
which really makes a difference.
Yeah, so I took my headphones off, you know, because it just felt like a live, like we were playing a real show.
Stage.
Yeah, rather than it being in headphones and all that. So yeah, it was a cool experience, man. And I was telling you know, I was talking with Nolan, my bass player, afterwards. I was like, man, it's really cool. I feel like when I listen to it, you know, that's what our live concerts feel like and sound like, you know. And so I felt really good about it.
How'd the Leslie, whose idea?
The Leslie was R.S. Fields. Yeah, R.S. Field. He was one of the co-producers, and he produced guys like Sonny Landreth, who's like one of my all-time favorite guitar players. slide guitar. He's just incredible. Allison Moore, great singer. So you know, so I really wanted to. I was excited, you know, when I had the opportunity to work with him. And just the coolest. He's just the coolest guy, you know, just so into music, and he took. It was interesting because for the whole album, I mean, of course there were mics too, but I was, you know, I had my plugged in, you know, for all the different sounds and all that, right? So he must have, I don't know what he did, but they had like this this channel thing where they probably had about, I don't know, 7 or 8 different turn my one output into 7 or 8 different outputs.
They multiply it.
Yeah, so they had some of it going through this and some of it going through like the Leslie. So I was always plugged into the Leslie. You know, one of my outputs was always going to the Leslie. So for every song, you know, we had a track of the ukulele going through the Leslie. But of course, we didn't want to overdo it, so we used it for a couple tunes. But you know, but yeah, and then there was like a tape echo thing, you know, the tape echo machine. Then we had, you know, these nice tube preamps, you know, for the warmth, and then I had something for all my overdrive stuff, and so it was really cool. So at any point as we're playing, like there's a tune called 6/8, and as we're playing, I mean, it wasn't even planned, but you know, the where the distortion solo comes in, I wasn't even planning on using it, but at the last minute, I just kind of stepped on the button and I just started playing, and we all just kind of looked at each other. Oh yeah, cool, you know. And it's funny because you can tell when you listen to that track that we had no idea where we're gonna go, because after I soloed and we built it up and it started coming down, we're kind of looking at each other like, oh wait, we didn't talk about an outro. How are we going to get out of it, right? And then we're like, and then so we'd kind of jump on other things, and then we kind of built it up again, and then it kind of came back down, and we're like, then we just kind of played the lick, and we just kind of looked at each other. We're like, okay, and now, you know. So if you listen to it, the ending is not real tight, but we were like, man, the energy and the spontaneity was so cool. We couldn't have planned that, you know, and we just said, let's just keep it, man. It's cool, and it turned into like a 7-minute free jam, you know. That was
the feel it gave too. It had that real and an explosive solos. If you've ever been, you know, if that's a part of Jake's playing that you enjoy, this is going to be a record where man. You're going to. I mean, yeah, no, you're welcome. And another one that I liked was, I guess it was the Galloping Seahorses. Because you talk about taking advantage of these other cats, and they're looking to you as the leader of the project, but that's a real give the drummer some kind of song, because there's just a extreme amount of percussion feel, and you showcase and let these other guys have the spotlight on them too. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, and I didn't mean, you know, I didn't mean like, you know, for me to be the leader of the band, but like, you know, it was great in the sense where I think in the beginning, you know, everyone was kind of looking to me for some direction, but after we were getting into it, everyone kind of realized, wow, man, this is such a cool, it's like everyone's a part of it, right? And everyone's contributing. So I mean, by like the second or third day in the studio, I mean, everyone was like excited about, oh, let's try this, you know? So it was really cool. But Galloping Seahorses was one that I got really excited about, because I was of course listening to some Yes, and I was listening to, I remembered an old
Do you remember that Yngwie Malmsteen record, the one that had Far Beyond the Sun?
Yeah, Rising Star.
Yeah, Rising Star. And remember, the album opens up with this really beautiful, cool acoustic guitar melody, and then it closes with it. Remember that? So I thought, and I don't know, for some reason that always kind of stuck in the back of my head. I remember
best record he did.
Oh man, yeah,
by a mile.
Yeah, it was incredible. But so I thought, man, I kind of want to write something like that, where open up with a nice little acoustic, thing on the baritone, and then end with it. And it was so neat because that song opens up with the baritone, and that vintage baritone acoustically, man, it sounds like everything I record with that thing just sounds like it was recorded in the 50s or something. It's just got this old vintage vibe to it. And so I recorded that, and then I switched ukuleles, went back to my tenor. I recorded the intro, then I switched back to my tenor, then we played the tune, right? And so it's really cool. Just that, I think the transition, the contrast between that baritone and then my tenor, it's almost like going from like the old, like an old ancient story, and then as soon as the tenor comes in, it's like you're back in modern times, and so it's this really cool, for me anyway, it was this really neat transition. And then at the end, after the song, I was going to go back to the baritone to close the piece, go back to the melody. But I just ended up, I was so in the moment, and after Evan's drum solo, Evan takes this killer drum solo on that, and it's in 7, right? So it's in 7. It's not, it's not a common time,
right? The time signatures are challenging throughout the thing.
Yeah, and so so he plays this thing, and that was only like his second or third. That was only the second or third pass that we took at it, and he just nails it. I mean, that second or third time, he just nailed it, and we all just, and then it just, that last note just kind of sustains,
hangs there.
And then without even thinking, I just went into the melody on my tenor, and that's why it starts with the baritone and then ends with the tenor.
But the drum, it's just cool how everybody gets to shine throughout it. That's one where he really lays it down. Another great one is the blues. The Blue Haiku it just made me feel, I know you played there not that long ago, it makes you feel like you're in a jazz club, like the Blue Note, or any kind of like where you're sitting in the dark. It's kind of like, I want to say smoky, but places aren't smoky anymore. I guess just dimly lit,
Yeah, it's I mean, for me, I really give all the credit, to Nolan and Evan. I mean, they're such great musicians, and the way that they play together just inspired me, to just go for different things, and they just play with so much conviction and authority, and they're so spontaneous.
Would you say their background of having to do so many varied kinds of sessions and really do that all the time, that helped you to, I mean, what a great foundation to get to explore. Who better to have than cats who have to do so much different work for a living every day?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, because those guys play all kinds of music, right? They're being in Nashville. I mean, they're not just playing the country stuff, but they got to play the rock stuff. They got to play the jazz stuff. They got to play, the blues and the pop.
A lot of big rock guys are living there these days.
Yeah,
doing stuff. I mean, John Oates is down there. Yeah. We just had Foghat on the show. They did their record there. I mean, every kind of stuff is coming together. That's like Music USA.
Oh man, yeah. Totally.
Perfect for you, huh?
It was very inspiring for me. I mean, I definitely encourage, any musician out there, man, to just to make a visit, to Nashville, and just kind of try to get in that community a little bit, because man, it truly is. I mean, it is. There's such a wealth of inspiration there
going on down there.
Yeah,
and from all different genres coming
all
together.
Different genres. Yeah, all different genres. When I first started going to Nashville, there was a cool group called the Music Mafia out there, and it was basically this group of basically independent musicians, that were just kind of starting out. And there's this huge band called Big and Rich, a country band out of Nashville, and they basically kind of funded this this community of musicians, and they embraced me, into their community when I first started touring up and going up to Nashville. And it was great, man. It was so cool because you never knew who was gonna, just kind of show up and come through the door. And
was that why you picked Nashville? Because you wanted to? I mean, what drew? Was it that what drew you? Like, wow, this is a good place to do this.
Well, you know what it was is, the thing that first brought me to Nashville was my booking agent was based out of Nashville, so
that'll do it.
Yeah, like, I don't know, he's been my booking agent for like almost 13, 14 years now. So when I first went up there, when I first started working with him, of course, he wanted to connect me to, the community there. So I would go up and he'd introduce me to these people, and
perfect place for you.
Yeah.
You'd never be bored. You'd always have somebody to help you do stuff.
Well, it was funny because back then, I wasn't really touring or anything. I had no knowledge of, being on the road. Of course, I was going to Japan, but back then it was just me and my manager, Kaz. You remember Kaz, right? So it was just the two of us, and she's originally from Japan, right? And we'd go up to Nashville and we're like these two Japanese Asian people, and we completely stick out, like sore thumbs. But, that's how we started out. We'd just go up there and just kind of see, what happens. But it was great, because over the years we've been able to make a lot of contacts and just, just make a lot of great friends.
And kind of, as you pointed out, a lot of people who work in the business, who are managers, tour directors, technicians on tour, seem to choose that as a place to live, and they'll keep their equipment, base their gear there. A lot of big rock bands are. Hailstorm's another one. I mean, there's like all these bands that I know people who work with or for, and they utilize Nashville as sort of, and their crew members, I guess I'm saying. So there's a lot of the support that you would need to have, really varied, talented musical people all around to fill out those roles. Yeah,
it's kind of it's becoming the Mecca, I think, because especially it's so central,
That's
and
probably a factor.
And then you have it's easy
to get the gear from one place to another.
It's easy to go to the East Coast, easy to go to the West Coast, easy to go up to Canada, all that, right? I mean, but yeah, it makes it difficult for them to come all the way to Hawaii. Though, or for me to go all the way up there. But and for me, Hawaii is like the perfect home for me because I can work easily I can travel to the mainland easily, but I can also travel to Japan and Asia easily. The only one that's hard is when we go to Europe. When we go to Europe, that's a long flight. But
that is a long flight.
But it's worth it. Yeah.
Let's get something. What's a thing you want to play?
Sure.
Through that really. It's been great. I love it when that's one of the fun things of getting together with you is you can dissect the songs with the instrument in your hand. It's always fun.
Well, let's see. Well, this is I'll play that blue haiku piece that you were talking about.
That's a great one.
And this one I love this one because I just love the warmth of the bass. And when we were first tracking this tune, Nolan tried like maybe 2 or 3 different electric basses, and then he went to the upright. We're like, oh, this is cool. And then he grabbed one of his old vintage jazz basses. I think one of those jazz, what's it called? It's an old jazz Fender bass with and he had these flat wound strings. I just had just a beautiful.
He's got something for each kind of occasion.
Yeah.
I dig that.
And that's the other thing too. The drummer, man, he brought I'm not even joking. He brought at least 20 different snare drums. That's just snare drums, and he had like 6 or 7 kick drums, those kick bass drums.
Well, they do have a different personality for each. So
I just couldn't believe it because I've never seen a whole shelf being wielded of like snare drums. It was just the craziest thing, but that's common. That's what they do, there. So he's like, oh man, you should see so-and-so's. It's like, double what mine is.
That's interesting though. It's kind of like you hear about sessions where guys like David Gilmour or something will have 20, 30 guitars lining up, but guys like this will have 20 or 30 snares in the room.
I mean, I showed up with 3 ukuleles and I thought this was kind of over the top, All right, well, here we go.
Shimabukuro in the Atherton, and digging into the Nashville sessions. Funny you mentioned the Yes earlier, because I hear the Steve Howe maybe a little bit and the harmonics, but I also hear like mid-period, late-period Fate's Warning. Like
oh,
that.
really?
Well, just that proggy kind of, especially because of the different time signatures that you were doing. And maybe it was, when I think of records like that one from '89 that had Chasing Time on it. I can't think of the name of the album, but it was just like some of the use that they would have where they would put acoustic in with this progressive metal and make it very melodic, and not so much about the metal really at that point, like breaking the mold, much like you're doing with the album. You just take it into so many different places.
Yeah, it was a great, it was a fun project for me, very educational. I mean, I already have ideas, like I want to start the next one because I have all these ideas, that I want to try, for the next one. And of course there are always things that I wish we had done differently, or I wish we had more time, or this and that, but you're always going to feel that way. I mean,
when it's done.
Yeah, every project that I've worked on, I've always felt like, man, I wish we could do this better. I wish we could, and not necessarily better, but you just, I mean, of course, everything that you do, you try to do it as best as you can, for that time. And then, but the problem is, as you start playing it and performing the pieces, and you get better at playing the pieces, then you wish you could go back and re-record them, because the more you spend on playing the tunes, then they feel different under your fingers. You have different ideas, but at the same time, I think there's something that gets lost when you overplay something, right? And I think. One of the cool things on this record is most of the tracks, a lot of the things that are happening were so spontaneous that we didn't plan on it. And so they're happening for the first time. And so we as players, we're playing it for the very first time.
And it's that fresh feel.
And then so the listeners are hearing it for the first time as well. So it's kind of this cool idea of everyone hearing it together, for the very first time. And it's like when you listen to those great jazz records, where they're just playing freely, it's spontaneous. They didn't, they're just playing it, capturing the moment, and that's it.
Yep.
Right. And
that's the take.
Yeah. And to me, that was always inspiring. It's just such a cool concept. And I'm sure, well, and I'm not sure actually, but, because even like some of those records, I'm sure when they listen to them, I mean, there has to be at least one or two times where they kind of hear something like, oh man, I wish I did this different, or maybe not, maybe everything was played perfectly, or everything was intentional, but there are things that happen that you couldn't plan for, in that style of music and that kind of playing. And that's why when I go out and I listen to guys like Noel Okimoto play, or Dean Taba, when I go out and hear, Benny Chong and Byron Yasui play, Vernon Sakata, he was somebody that I spoke to a lot before I went into the studio, because Vernon Sakata, he's always been one of my he's a dear friend, and he's always been a musician that I've always respected, and he's got such great ears, and of course such a great player, but always has such a open and great, I think, just a very balanced perspective on things, So when I went into this record, I was telling him, I think I'm going to be a lot more experimental, and I'm going to try this. And because I didn't have any music prepared, I was telling him, I might do some covers. I'm thinking of some covers. And I mentioned to him Jeff Beck's "'Cause We've Ended as Lovers," and Jimi Hendrix' "Little Wing." So I was thinking, those might be covers that I can do if I can't compose any music, right? I need something to record, right? So I talked to him pretty extensively on the approach, and and that's why he, I thanked him in the record as well. But he really helped me to, to kind of figure out a good balance, because he's a guitar player, I wanted to hear his perspective, because the last thing I wanted to do was come across as like, people think like, oh, he's trying to be a guitar player, because that's totally not what I was going for. It was just, I just wanted to show people a different side of the ukulele. And it actually, showed me a different side of the ukulele, you know, in the process. So it was a great experience.
I think it's going to show a lot of people who listen to you a different side of you too with this. It's Nashville Sessions, a new one from Jake Shimabukuro, and just a thrill to get to explore it with you. Great to hear you getting that side of your influence on and into the mix. And I really appreciate you spending some time talking about it with us and returning to our HPR Atherton Performing Arts Studio to do it. It's always nice to reconnect with you in here, and I appreciate your support of HPR over the years and of doing things on ATC with me. Very grateful for it.
Oh no, thank you, and to all the listeners, you know, thank you for supporting HPR, and you know, we gotta keep supporting them, and you know, this is our radio station, so you know, keep. Anytime you feel like it, pick up the phone, make a donation, and no one's twisting my arm to say this right now. Just, yeah, it's important that we continue to support the programming and all that you do for the community. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you doing this. I hope you had fun today.
Oh yeah, always. It's always a pleasure talking with you. So thank you.
You're welcome.